She doesn't realize it yet, but she's becoming addicted to silence. Not his words, not his attention, his absence. 5 times in 10 minutes, she checked her phone. Nothing. The man who once waited hours for her replies has vanished into thin air. And now, he's all she can think about. Not because he's charming, not because he's special, but because he did what 90% of men are too weak to do. He stopped trying. He became the void she can't escape. You think women want attention. They don't. They want the man who can withhold it. Because attention freely given is attention devalued. When you text back instantly, you confirm you have nothing else to do. When you explain yourself, you prove she controls your emotions. When you chase, you destroy the very tension that fuels attraction. Most men kill desire by suffocating it. They mistake validation for connection, access for intimacy, and effort for value. But the truth is brutal. A man who's always available isn't desirable. He's disposable. The modern woman doesn't crave the man who adores her. She craves the man she can't fully read. The one who doesn't flinch under pressure, who doesn't rearrange his life for her texts. The one whose silence makes her question her worth. Because feminine desire isn't sparked by presence. It's ignited by uncertainty. It's not, I can have him. It's why can't I? That mental loop, the not knowing, the wondering, the imagining, is where obsession begins. And most men burn it to ashes by rushing toward clarity. They want confirmation. They need to know. They over-explain, over-text, over-give. And in doing so, they erase the mystery that made them interesting. Here's what men don't understand. Women test, not to reject you, but to feel you. They cancel plans, pull back, go cold, not to punish you, but to measure your strength. Will you crumble? Will you chase? Will you lose control? Every emotional test is a mirror showing how grounded you truly are. And most men fail spectacularly. They leap to prove their worth, beg for reassurance, and text paragraphs defending themselves. But the men who pass, the ones who stay centered when she's emotional, calm when she's distant, still when she's chaotic, those men become her obsession. Not because they play games, but because they live lives so complete they don't need to play them. That's the paradox she can't resist. A man who doesn't chase is the man she wants to catch. A man who doesn't explain is the man she longs to understand. A man who can walk away is the one she can't forget. Challenge is not manipulation, it's magnetism. It's what happens when your life is so full that her presence is a privilege, not a priority. When you move from needing her to choosing her, from reacting to leading, from being the contestant to being the prize. So the next time she cancels, goes quiet, or pulls away, remember this. Her distance is your test, not your downfall. Don't chase. Don't explain. Don't react. Because the moment you show you need her, you've already lost her. Attraction lives in uncertainty. Desire dies in predictability. And the man who understands that becomes the man every woman quietly wants but few ever earn. He meant, you come up with complex ideas as to why she is withdrawing. You approach every encounter as though it were crucial. You're drowning and you're chasing clarity like it's oxygen. However, attraction's nemesis is clarity. She will require you less the more you know. Attempting to hasten intimacy is a covert form of neediness. After 3 dates, you want to have the conversation. Before you even know her last name, you want to be exclusive. Prior to proving your worth, you desire assurances. You're attempting to keep her locked up because you're afraid someone else will steal her, not because you think she's worth it. It seeps into everything you do, that fear, that lack, that need to protect. The death sentence of attraction is predictability. You become furniture when she is aware of your specific texting schedule, your exact words, and your exact reaction. Dependable, comfortable, and uninteresting furniture. The kind you're unaware of until it's gone. The type that you swap out without mourning. The type that fulfills a purpose without igniting passion. Being dishonest is not what mystery is all about. It's about choosing which truths to believe. She doesn't have to be aware that you've been considering her all day. You don't have to let her know that you cleared your schedule in the hopes that she will call. She doesn't have to be aware that you declined other plans in case she becomes available. She stops frantically wanting you the moment she realizes she has you fully. Responses that are delayed give room for creativity. Her mind begins to work when you don't text her back right away. What is he doing? With whom is he? What makes him less enthusiastic than other men? Attraction intensifies during the pause between her message and your reply. You're proving that your life isn't centered around your phone or her texts, not because you're playing games. Her interest is maintained by being a little unpredictable. You may or may not be available at any given time. Depending on the situation, you may or may not initiate. You can be warm at times or aloof at others, in a kind manner rather than one that is deceptive. Because people who lead full lives are like that. These vending machines don't always provide attention when you ask for it. They are multifaceted creatures with different priorities, moods, and levels of availability. It's too simple to abandon a man who is too easy to read. The urgency vanishes when she realizes she can have you whenever she wants. She no longer fears losing you when she knows you'll always be there. The thrill fades when she realizes exactly where she stands. The emotional roller coaster that addiction demands is produced by mystery. The uncertainties that keep her invested, the highs and lows of connection and distance. Being a player is not the goal of dating several women. It all comes down to avoiding the desperate mindset caused by shortage. Every move she takes feels like life or death when she's your only choice. Every text is too important. Every date is too significant. It seems like the end of the world every time you are rejected. However, everything changes when you have choices. Genuine confidence is produced by abundance. You're not feigning indifference. Since you don't have all of your emotional eggs in one basket, you actually don't care as much. You're not being difficult to get. Because of the division of your time, you are actually more difficult to get. You're not pretending to be uninterested. Your attention is divided, which actually makes you less interested. This has nothing to do with deceit or lying. It involves dating several people until a clear definition of exclusivity is reached. It's about not investing all of your feelings in someone who hasn't deserved them. It's about holding on to options until someone demonstrates that they are worthwhile. Women are able to detect this. They are able to distinguish between when you're acting as though you have options and when you actually do. When she draws away, the man with plenty is not alarmed. When she puts distance between them, he doesn't chase. He understands that if she walks, others won't, so he doesn't break down when she tests. Others won't accept him if she does. Others won't play games with her. Everything about his appearance is altered by this understanding and reality. Additionally, his arrival completely alters her reaction. Women are drawn to males that other women desire. Evolutionary psychology is rooted in social proof. A man must be valuable if he is desired by several women. A man with options must be someone worth picking. There must be a good explanation why the man isn't desperate. And she wants to be the one to win him over because of that perceived value, that proved worth, and that proven desirability. In the early stages of dating, your phone is not your buddy. It is a tool, and most guys use it like a scalpel when they should be using it like a sledgehammer. Every message, phone call, and exchange either strengthens or weakens attraction. And the majority of men ruin it by viewing communication as comfort food rather than as a means of strategic engagement. Instead of having dates, the phone is used to set them. Long text exchanges ruin the mystery. Hour-long phone calls ruin anticipationation. There are no more reasons to meet when you share your life story via texts. The individual who uses digital communication to divulge everything has nothing more to learn firsthand. He turns into a novel with no surprises left, a book she has already read, and a movie she has already seen. Silence has more power than words when she calls off plans. Don't inquire as to why. Do not reschedule right away. Don't make sure everything is all right. Your silence speaks volumes. You have other things to do, it says. It implies that you can be happy without her around. It indicates that you are self-assured enough to give room without requiring justification. Furthermore, that quiet will reverberate in her thoughts more loudly than any words you might say. You should respond with assurance, candor, and humor, not defensive justifications for your value. Unrepentantly rushing for approval, not retaliating passive-aggressively for perceived slights. Even rejection loses significance when you react with self-assurance and abundance. No issue. The phrase, "hit me up when you're free," has more impact than lengthy arguments. The man who talks too much is trying to make up for something, usually out of concern that she won't remember him if they don't communicate frequently. She won't be interested if she doesn't receive daily validation. She will look for someone else if you're not there consistently. However, the reverse is also true. She thinks about the man who speaks little yet effectively. Less means more, according to this man. The value of the man who isn't constantly available increases. Women are not interested in being pursued. They desire to be selected. There is a significant distinction. Chasing suggests desperation. It's like chasing after something that's attempting to get away. Choosing suggests selection, as if you have considered your options and come to a conclusion. While the other feels like a prize, the first feels like pressure. Women aren't always looking for the romance story they want. It's a targeted investment. Anyone may expressly choose her because of the male. It's the difficulty of winning over someone who is difficult to win. The triumph of drawing attention is something that isn't given freely. He was enamored from the beginning. Isn't that the love story? He had choices, but he decided on me. The story arc is killed by constant pursuit. Stories require conflict, tension, and unpredictability. No one remains interested if the conclusion is clear from the start. A story isn't worth telling if the hero wins the prize without any effort. You're creating a dull narrative that she doesn't want to be the lead in when you eliminate all barriers through excessive availability. The push-pull dynamic provides the emotional thrill that women are looking for. The distance that makes proximity valued, the periods of intense connection followed by separation, and the uncertainty that gives significance to certainty. You may flatline the emotional experience by being present, pursuing, and available all the time. You stop being a symphony and become background noise. Playing games isn't the point of being occupied. It all comes down to genuinely setting important priorities. Something intriguing occurs when she requests to see you and you are actually unavailable. She sees that you're not waiting for her to call you. She is aware that making plans is necessary to get your time. She understands that spending time with you puts other worthwhile pursuits in competition. Additionally, competition adds value. Your timetable ought to be a gated castle rather than a field that is accessible to everyone. Being overly approachable turns you into a convenience rather than a choice. Similar to a 24-hour shop that is always open when needed, but is never particularly noteworthy to schedule. Value is created by association for the man who needs planning, has limited availability, and values his time. The purpose of boundaries is not to keep people out. They serve as filters to decide who should be allowed entry. You make her work for access to your time, energy, and attention when you set limits around them. Additionally, investment fosters attachment. She treasures your presence more the more she strives for it. The more accessible you are, the less valuable you are. A man with limits doesn't rearrange his life to accommodate a possible romantic relationship. He incorporates romance into a life that is already full. He doesn't call off plans to go on a date with buddies. She might text, so he doesn't skip the gym. She exhibited curiosity, but that doesn't mean he gives up on his objective. VES, whether she takes part or not, his life goes on, and she wants to be included because of that independence, that wholeness, that completion without her. The ultimate appeal trigger is her ability to remain composed while causing mayhem. Women use emotional instability as a test of their emotional stability. They instigate storms to test your ability to offer cover or risk being carried away, to determine if you will participate in the performance or stay in reality. They fabricate drama. Additionally, most men fall short by emulating their emotional state rather than preserving their own. You're displaying emotional control when she pulls away and you don't pursue. If you maintain your composure as she fabricates drama, you're displaying power. When you uphold boundaries when she tests them, you are demonstrating your worth. Your capacity to maintain composure in the face of her emotional storms shows that you are the rock she can fall on when everything else falters. Low value is indicated by emotional instability since it demonstrates a lack of self-control. How can you control her emotions if you can't control your own? How will you respond to pressure in your life if you break down under relationship pressure? Who is truly in charge if your responses are determined by her behavior? An emotionally unstable man is not a leader. He is a liability. Being confident doesn't mean being loud or combative. Quiet confidence prevails. It's the capacity to endure discomfort without rushing to find a remedy. It's accepting her anger without feeling compelled to address it right away. It's embracing rejection without getting upset about it. It involves keeping your body in place despite outside pressure. This emotional stability, this unwavering core, and this resistance to being dragged into chaos is more alluring than any material possession or level of wealth. The harbor she returns to is the man who stays composed in the face of her storms. By default, the man who doesn't respond to her tests passes them. She needs an anchor from the man who keeps her emotionally stable while she goes through emotional turmoil. By truly being these things, not by attempting to be them. By gaining true emotional control that is impervious to testing. This is what most men find most frustrating. She does more when you don't care. Not feigning indifference while secretly obsessed. Actually, you should care less because your life is already so full that you are not defined by the opinion of one individual. This has nothing to do with being uncaring or uncaring. It's about being sufficiently whole that neither acceptance nor rejection can annihilate you. The dilemma gets more complicated. She becomes less available the more available you are. She values less the more you invest. And she flees more quickly the more you pursue her. She wants you less the more you need her. Since necessity isn't appealing, desire is alluring. Choice is alluring. Desire is alluring. However, need is disgusting. It lets them know you're not complete, that she's being used by you to cover a gap, that you need her rather than choosing her. Women do not have an addiction they have an addiction to unnecessary males. Men who chose them, enjoy them, and desire them, yet are not in need of them. Because he is too self-centered to care, he just so happens to be the guy who doesn't need anyone. However, you don't have to be a needy person. All you have to do is be whole. Making her chase you isn't the task at hand. It all comes down to being worth pursuing. It's about creating a life that is so precious that it feels like a luxury to have access to it. The goal is to become so centered that her presence adds to your experience without defining it. The goal is to create an internal validation system that makes external validation enjoyable, but superfluous. Because they take pleasure in suffering, women are not dependent on males who confront their ego. They are addicted because difficulty suggests worth, and challenge is a symbol of value. Because it is rarely worthwhile to choose the easy route. A man who has principles, choices, and self-respect, and who refuses to compromise his honor for her acceptance, is the one who confronts her ego. You have been conditioned to think that being interested is a sign of weakness, that caring is a sign of giving up, and that falling in love is a sign of losing oneself. However, true strength is the capacity to care without needing, to desire without needing, and to desire without relying. Being remote is not the problem. It's about being whole. You're already full and don't need her to fill the void. Men aren't aiming to undermine women's egos. It comes easily to them. They're simply leading lives that are more significant than any romantic fantasy. Their objectives are more important than approval. Their standards are more important than friendship. And their missions are more important than sex. They're not trying to be difficult to get, since they already have a worthwhile existence and must earn a spot in order to enter it. They are genuinely difficult to obtain. This has nothing to do with games, strategies, or gimmicks. It's about developing into the kind of man whose presence is appreciated, whose absence is felt, whose time is valuable, whose attention is earned, and whose investment has meaning since it's not offered freely to everybody who expresses interest. Instead than appearing to be valuable, it's about becoming truly valuable. The task itself isn't the source of the addiction. It's in relation to what the challenge stands for. A man who is difficult to defeat will be difficult to leave. A man with values is valuable. Respect is maintained by a man who sets limits. She won't be drained by a man who doesn't need her. The problem is merely the symptom. The sickness is the value. Furthermore, value isn't delivered. It's constructed. Give up striving to be difficult and begin creating a life that presents challenges on its own. Give up trying to appear busy and begin actually occupied with important tasks. Create real options instead than just acting like you have them. Women can tell the difference between performance and reality. So quit acting confident and begin developing true self-assurance. Additionally, they only have an addiction to the genuine thing. Share this with other men who should hear it if it strikes a chord with you, and if these words reveal tendencies you've been unaware of. You might enjoy this video if it clarified dynamics you've encountered but found difficult to describe. For more unvarnished information about relationships, attraction, and the psychology underlying it, subscribe. Because what everyone sees but no one acknowledges needs to be said. The game is authentic. Clarity or confusion depends on your ability to recognize the patterns, which are constant. Music